Hey everyone, Connor here today at etrailer.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at Roadmaster's Front Anti-Sway Bar here for our 2018 Jayco Greyhawk. So the front sway bar is going to be an excellent addition to any motorhome. Basically, what it is going to do, in the shortest, simplest sense, is it's going to provide a more direct link between the chassis and the body. Some examples you might really see right away from improvements are when we're out on the open road, if we get passed by a large semi, or we need to make some evasive maneuvers in our steering, we're not going to feel as much rocking from our coach back and forth and side to side. We're going to feel much more in control of our motorhome here, which is going to increase our confidence when we're out on the road. So now we're going to go ahead and take our speed bump course here with our factory sway bars here to show you the difference it's going to make when we install the upgraded sway bars. So right away, we can definitely feel our motorhome shifting side to side. There's definitely going to be a lot of rocking and body roll. I suspect you're going to see a lot of this when we pass large trucks on the highway as well, and we have that big gust of wind hit the side of our RV. So now we're going to head on over to our slalom course here. We're going to get up to speed and we're going to make some evasive maneuvers. We can definitely feel when we make those sharp turns. If we had to avoid something on the highway at speed, we're definitely going to feel a lot of rocking back and forth in our motorhome here due to the weight transferring side to side. And basically, the anti-sway bars that we have now, they're not going to be quite stiff enough to really take a lot of that play out. So now with our sway bars installed, we're going to head back over to our speed bump course here at eTrailer, see if we can notice a difference. So yeah, right away we can definitely feel we have a little bit more control. Our steering isn't jerking so much, and when we do hit those bumps there and rock our coach here, we don't have that sort of lingering rocking feeling anymore. Now we're going to head back over to our slalom course here. And again, right away, it feels a lot smoother. We don't have that lingering rocking feeling, and it's not nearly as violent rocking back and forth. So most motorhomes actually already come with the front anti-sway bar, but what our Roadmaster Front Anti-Sway Bar offers is, number one, it's going to be a lot thicker in diameter than the factory sway bar. Therefore, it's going to be a lot more stronger and rigid, so we're going to be able to reduce more body roll. It's also, unlike the factory sway bar, it's going to come with polyurethane bushings, which are going to last much longer and just be a lot more durable overall than the rubber bushings that come with the factory sway bar. So here's what our front anti-sway bar looks like when we have it installed. We have our polyurethane bushings on either end, but it's actually going to reuse the factory saddle brackets as well as the factory end links. That's just going to make installation a little bit easier since we're not going to have to remove the end links from the vehicle. So touching on that installation a little bit more, this is definitely going to be one of the upgrades you can make to your motorhome that you can do at home by yourself. We really don't need any special tools, and you don't really need to have a lot of mechanical knowledge to be able to do this yourself. So let's jump right into the installation and show you how it's done. So the first step of our installation here, we actually need to unload the front of our suspension here. So we're going to need to raise it so the wheels are off the ground, making sure we have it properly supported with jack stands. So we went ahead and sprayed our bolts down here with a penetrating compound just to help break them free. But we're going to be removing this clamp here first. We're going to have one on each side. We're going to have a bolt in the front, which is a larger bolt, and then a smaller bolt in the rear. In order to remove these two bolts, we're going to need an 18mm socket for the front one and a 15mm socket for the rear one. So we're just going to loosen both of these before we take them all the way out on both sides. That way we don't have to worry about putting too much pressure or tension on the sway bar. So now once we have both bolts out, we should maybe just pry it a little bit, but it should come down on its own pretty easily. So we need to be careful of that when we're undoing that last bolt, because this could swing down on you. So now that we have the sway bar free from the frame here, we need to go ahead and remove it from the end links. As you can see, there's going to be two sides to the end links here. One of them which is at the top, the other one is going to be at the bottom, sort of at the very lower portion of the control arm. So what we're going to do is we're going to be loosening the bolt from the top of the end link here, because we're going to be leaving the end links on the vehicle. So we're going to need an 18mm deep well socket. We're just going to go ahead and remove that flange nut And once we get them off on both sides, we should be able to take the sway bar out from under the vehicle. Now we'll go ahead and repeat that process on the other side. So now we need to be careful that we're not going to be laying underneath our sway bar here, because we're going to lift up and then we're going to sort of push the end links out, the hole there, and our sway bar should drop to the ground. And once we do that on both sides, we should be able to remove it completely from the vehicle. So before we do away with our old sway bar completely, we went ahead and just pulled it straight out and sat it here on the ground. And the reason we did this is we need to make sure that we pay attention to the curves on the bar here, so we match the new sway bar up to that. And you can see here the curves going here, they're going to match on both ends. So we have our new sway bar laid out just as it needs to be set up on the vehicle. So before we get the sway bar up on the vehicle here, we're going to take our saddle bushings, which come in our kit here, as well as our grease. We're going to grease up the inside of both of these bushings here, getting a good amount of grease on there. So now we can go ahead and slide our sway bar up into the vehicle more. What we're going to do now is we're going to take some of the Loctite that came with our kit. In the bolts on the end of our end links there on either side, we want to apply a little bit of Loctite to each of those. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. And we don't need a whole lot, but we do need to do this on both sides. That should be pretty good. So now we're going to take one end of our sway bar. We're going to go ahead and slide our end link through that, and then we can secure it on the other side with our factory flange nut. The same one we removed the factory sway bar with. We're going to go ahead and do that on both sides and just leave everything hand tight for now. So now we're going to take our saddle bushings that we greased up earlier, and we're going to install them here on our sway bar. We're going to be installing them on sort of this, we see this first curve come up here, the second curve, so it's going to be right on the flat end of the second curve. It should be pretty easy to determine if you just look straight down from where the bolt holes are from the mounting clamps. Once we have those on there, we can go ahead and set our bracket on there. There's going to be two sides on our bracket here, one with the smaller bolt hole, one with the larger bolt hole. The larger bolt hole is going to facing the front of the vehicle here. And then what we can do is we can take some of our hardware. We're going to be using our factory hardware, but we're going to be putting Loctite on these. So we're going to start with the larger bolt up front. Make sure we get a good coat of Loctite on there. Then with one hand we can sort of lift it up into position and use the other one to secure it. Now if you have an extra set of hands nearby, it's definitely going to help for this step here. So now that we have our forwardmost bolt in, go ahead and use the rear bolt, which is the smaller of the two. Apply some Loctite. Then we can get a couple threads to get it started to hold it into position. Now we're just going to go ahead and snug up both bolts evenly. We want to make sure we don't zip one down all the way without tightening the other one first. We're just going to evenly torque them down. So now we can take our torque wrench here. We can torque down all of our bolts to the amount specified in our instructions. And that's going to do it today for our look and installation of Roadmaster's Front Anti-Sway Bar here for our 2018 Jayco Greyhawk.